There are moments so ordinary they should be forgettable. And yet one hug, just one, has become the most replayed scene in the entire film of your life. You didn't know it was the last one, and that's the cruelest part. It was a Tuesday, or maybe a Wednesday, the kind of unremarkable weekday that had no business becoming sacred. The hallway light was on, someone was rushing out the door, and the words exchanged were something like, "Love you, be safe," nothing dramatic, nothing cinematic, just life doing what life does before it pulls the rug out. And then the rug came out. The call came, or the door didn't open, or the chair stayed empty at dinner, and suddenly that Tuesday hug became the most expensive real estate in your memory. Here's the thing about last hugs. They never feel like last hugs. And that's not a design flaw, that's the feature. If we knew every goodbye was final, we'd never let go, and we'd never actually live. Grief researchers call it the doorway effect of loss. The moment you cross from the world where that person exists into the world where they don't, and your brain starts furiously cataloging everything it can find. It is less like mourning and more like archaeology, excavating texture, warmth, the exact pressure of arms around your shoulders. You replay the hug not because you're stuck, but because your nervous system is doing something remarkably intelligent. It's trying to keep that person's nervous system alive inside yours. The memory isn't a wound, it's a bridge. And every time you walk across it, you're choosing connection over erasure. But let's be sardonic for a second, because grief has a brutal sense of irony. You spent years hugging this person and barely registered half of them. And now the one you remember most vividly is the one you had no idea mattered. We are, as a species, spectacularly bad at paying attention until paying attention is all we have left. Psychologists who study bereavement, people like Dr. Mary Frances O'Connor, who wrote The Grieving Brain, will tell you that the mind treats a deceased loved one the way a GPS treats a closed road. It keeps rerouting, keeps expecting to find them, keeps running the old program. That hug is the last saved location before the map changed entirely. And here's where the pattern shows up across every person who has ever lost someone. The memory doesn't stay the same size. Some days, it's a pinhole, barely accessible. Other days, it floods the whole room and you're standing in the kitchen crying because the dish soap smells familiar. What's interesting and almost darkly funny in a cosmic sense is that the hug probably lasted 3 seconds. 3 seconds that your brain has now rendered in 4K resolution with surround sound and haptic feedback, replayed thousands of times like the most obsessively curated content algorithm you never asked to run. Here's the misconception worth dismantling. Replaying the memory doesn't mean you aren't healing, it means you love someone. And love doesn't have an off switch just because the person left the building. The replay is not pathology, it's loyalty expressed through neuroscience. The practical lesson grief teaches, the one that arrives slowly and without fanfare, is that presence is the only currency that actually compounds. You can't go back and hug harder or longer or more deliberately, but you can right now, today, be the person who makes someone else's last memory of you a good one. The role that final hug plays in dark moments is not to make the darkness worse. It is to prove, irrefutably, that something worth losing existed. And that is, despite the ache of it, one of the most profound things a human being can hold. Discipline here isn't financial, it's emotional. The discipline to let the memory be what it was, not to torture it into something you should have done differently, and to carry it with grace rather than guilt. The size of the grief is just a receipt for the size of the love, and that's a bill worth having paid. So if you find yourself replaying that last hug today, the setting, the words, the ordinary miracle of it, know that you're not broken. You're just someone who loved well enough to remember. And if you like what we make here, subscribe and check out all our other topics.